are back. You are listening to TurboCharge Your Business on the #1 global business talk and news network on the internet, IBGR, International Business Growth Radio. I'm your host, Patty Lawrence. This is episode 23, Capital Planning, Cash Flow Budget. Be sure to go to our website at ibgr.network and download the show notes. So, cash flow budgeting for capital planning purposes. What do we need to do that for? Well, it's really, really important. It's one of the most forgotten pieces of your capital budgeting, of your cash flow budgeting. Every year, people assume that they've got everything covered when they're doing their cash flow planning because it's coming from operations. It's coming from the P&L. So when you prepare your budget, you're just looking at what does your income statement say? What is your revenues? What's your gross profit? What is your net income on the bottom line? That's awesome. But a piece that is forgotten every time is what cash is required from your operations to support the capital plan, capital budget, strategic plan. What did your strategic plan say you were going to invest in? We just talked about growth. We talked about your growth planning capital, your growth capital. We talked about your maintenance capital, your sustaining capital. That all has to be paid for, right? What are the resources you're going to have for this? That's why cash flow budgeting is a part of capital planning, because it's cash intensive, right? It's resource intensive. So, where is that money going to come from? Where is the cash going to come from to fund the investments that you need for your business, either for sustaining your business or for growing your business? Well, for the most part, there are two sources for cash related to capital. You can get cash internally, organically, internally generated from your business. So that's cash from operations. The other source is external, or OPM, other people's money. And it could be from borrowing, banks, could be from investors, could be equity, could be just, loans from investors. It doesn't really matter, but you're going to have to pay it back, right? It's not that it's self-funded. It's funded by others with other people's money. So this is all about planning for the funding, right? Planning the funding of the capital expenditure outlays. And how do we do that? So we talked about the two sources. We've got internal funding, external funding. So what's the difference between those two? Well, I would say, one, you always have to plan for them, right? That's why we talk about what are our projects related to it, growth projects versus sustaining projects. What do those look like? Do they have an ROI? We talked about the process for planning for those things, and it included some financial modeling and some ROI calculations and some scenario analyses, because let's face it, some of these projects can go multiple years. If you're talking about expansion, some of the growth opportunities, they can span more than 1 year, more than one calendar year, more than one fiscal year, whatever measurement you're on, it can go more than 12 months. So we have that, and we have the measurement of that. But we also have, between the internal funding and the external funding, there's one big difference between the two of those. And one of it is expectations, the ROI expectations. So if you're getting money from other people, the OPM, external category, other people's money, typically what's going to happen is you're going to have a certain set of expectations. There's going to be a return expectation from those folks. So if it's they're betting on your new product, they're betting on your new expansion into a new geographic territory. What those are, they're bets, if you will. They're betting that you're going to be successful there and their money is going to make a return. So they're going to ask for a return on the investment. It's usually in the form of interest, repayments, or in the form of equity. It's obviously part ownership in the company, which obviously then the return flows to the bottom line and then is distributed out of earnings. So that difference in expectations when you're using your own internal money, you should still have an expectation that you're going to achieve your plan. So what is your expected ROI on that project? Regardless of if it's other people's money or if it's your money, you still want to make darn sure that you're getting a return on your investment so that your project, you deem it a success, because that's going to be adding value back into your company, therefore creating that return on the investment. So if you're adding more to the bottom line, or you're expanding your sales, I should say, and expanding your sales. So if you expand your sales by creating a new territory or going into expanding into a new product segment or a new geographic segment, whatever those are, you're going to be adding more sales, more profits. And that is going to be how you measure your return on the investment. And if it's a multi-year project, you obviously have to take it into account for more than one calendar year to calculate that return on investment. So when we look at the cash flow budget, a lot of times we have to take into account, maybe it's not an either or source of funding. Because the project is so large, we're going to not only fund it with our own money internally, we also have to go out and borrow some. So maybe it's 50-50, 60-40, whatever that split is. You want to make sure that you understand what those pieces are and also account for them in how they're going to be timed. And when I talk about timing, when you talk about a project, you're going to have to know at a pretty granular level, maybe at the month level, when you need to have certain things funded. So if you have upfront payments for some of these maybe pieces of equipment, or you have to break ground, or you have to purchase land, whatever that is, you're going to have to time that out. Time out the expenditures, what needs to be done when. You have to have deposits or down payments or progress payments, or things aren't due until they're completed, and there's a certificate of occupancy if it's a building related, or the machine has to pass certain tests. Once it's installed, you don't pay the manufacturer until that thing is performing up to spec and you are getting good product off of it. Whatever those things are, you have to have that modeled in your cash flow budget. So over the course of the budget, map all of those expenditures out. When those have to happen, when do you expect the timing of it? You're probably going to have to work with your capital planning folks or your facilities folks to understand what the timing is, what vendors they're using, And when those vendors need to have money, you'll probably have some contracts signed. So you'll be able to look at the contracts and reflect those in that cash flow budget. The other thing is this whole cash flow budgeting process needs to be in alignment with your strategic plan priorities and the resourcing. So you're not going to be doing something that hasn't got the right time or priority. You're not going to include the cash flow budget in your cash flow budget, a project that doesn't align with the priorities. So make sure that when you're preparing all of these, you understand which one gets done first, which one gets done second, when do all of those start? When do you start outlaying the money or drawing down the loans? When do you have to have all of those things in place so that you can move this forward and also complete it in a timely manner so that your P&L starts reflecting the profits from these projects being implemented. We're going to take a 2-minute break, and when we return, we will be talking about capital planning for products and services. Check out my collection of free resources at turboexecs.com/turbocharge. And you can continue the conversation with me, Patty Lawrence, on LinkedIn. You have been listening to Turbocharge Your Business and episode 23, Capital Planning, Cash Flow Budget on IBGR. I'm Patty Lawrence, and we'll be back after a short break.